Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we are digging into a gardening technique with a pretty strange name. It promises a garden that can practically water and fertilize itself, all by using stuff that's probably just lying around your yard right now. So is it a secret weapon, or is it just a big pile of hype? Let's find out.
All right, so what's the big idea here? This is an ancient method, but it has modern gardeners all excited. So let's really dig in and get to the core of what this is all about.
I mean, just picture that for a second. A garden that you don't have to constantly water or feed. That's the huge problem Hugelkultur claims it can solve. It's about turning what can be a high-maintenance chore into a thriving, low-maintenance ecosystem. Okay, so first, don't let the name scare you off. It's pronounced Hugelkultur, and it's German for hill culture. And really, at its heart, the concept is just brilliant in its simplicity. You're basically building a garden bed on top of a pile of buried wood and other organic stuff. That's it.
And this is where the real magic happens. You know all those fallen branches, old logs, maybe some hedge trimmings you'd normally bag up and throw out? Well, in Hugelkultur, that's not waste at all. It's the key ingredient, the foundation for some of the most incredibly fertile soil you can imagine.
So, how in the world does a pile of sticks and logs buried under some dirt actually work? It sounds a little too simple, right? Well, let's peel back the layers and take a look at the science that really makes these mounds come alive.
The whole system really boils down to this one super powerful idea. As wood breaks down and rots, it completely changes. It becomes incredibly porous, super absorbent, and just full of life. It literally transforms into a giant living sponge, right there under your plants.
And that's the #1 benefit. That buried wood soaks up a ton of water when it rains, and then, when things get hot and dry, your plant's roots can just tap right into that reservoir. It becomes its own built-in irrigation system.
Pretty cool, huh?
And get this isn't some short-term fix. We're talking about a long-term investment in your soil. If you use big, hardwood logs at the bottom of your mound, they can take more than 20 years to fully decompose. For 2 decades, they're just slowly releasing moisture and nutrients into the soil. It's like the ultimate slow-release fertilizer.
You know, it's really this amazing chain reaction. Fungi and bacteria get to work breaking down the wood, and that process actually generates a little bit of heat, which can give you a slightly longer growing season. And as the wood shrinks, it creates these little air pockets, which keeps the soil nice and fluffy. So it's kind of self-tilling. All of this creates the perfect home for earthworms and microbes, turning the whole mound into a living, breathing ecosystem that also locks up carbon in the ground instead of letting it go into the atmosphere.
Okay, so I bet you're seeing the potential. You're probably thinking, this sounds amazing, but how do I actually build one? Well, it's basically like making a giant garden lasagna. Let's walk through the recipe.
These are your key building blocks. You start with the big stuff at the bottom, your logs. Then you fill in all the gaps with smaller twigs and leaves. Now, the greens are super important. Things like grass clippings. That's your nitrogen, and it's the fuel that gets the whole decomposition party started. Then you kickstart the biology with some good compost and cover the whole thing with topsoil. And the best part? You can probably find most of this stuff for free. So the process itself is pretty straightforward. You can either dig a trench to start or just build it right on the ground. Lay down your biggest logs first. Then you're going to pile on the smaller stuff, really trying to pack it in there to avoid big air pockets. After that, layer on those nitrogen-rich greens. And finally, you cover the entire mound with topsoil for your plants, and then add a nice layer of mulch on top to protect it all. Okay, we've heard all the amazing promises, right? A garden bed that basically sustains itself. It sounds absolutely perfect. But how does all of that hold up in the real world? Let's get real for a minute and look at the practicality behind the hype. Because there's always a catch, isn't there? No single gardening method is a perfect silver bullet for everyone, so it's time to take a critical look at some of the challenges and the real trade-offs that come with, well, building a mountain in your backyard. So let's compare the claims to the reality. That self-fertilizing promise? Well, for the first year or so, as all that carbon-rich wood starts to break down, it actually needs nitrogen to do it, so it can temporarily suck the nitrogen out of your soil, which can starve your plants. No-till? Kinda. The mound sinks a lot as the wood decomposes, so you'll be adding more soil on top every year. And saving money? Well, that's debatable. And finally, that amazing natural habitat, it can also attract termites, so you really need to build it a good distance from your house. Let's talk about the cost, because this is a really big one. For Hugelkultur to truly work its magic in a raised bed, that bed needs to be deep. We're talking at least 18, maybe even 24 inches tall.
And building a bed that high can cost way more in lumber or materials than a standard 12-inch bed. So any money you thought you were saving on soil could get completely eaten up by the higher cost of building the bed itself.
So after weighing all these pros and cons, the big question is this mound for you? This technique definitely isn't for everyone or every garden. So let's break down who this is a really great fit for and who might want to pass.
All right, let's make the call. Look, Hugelkultur could be an absolute game changer if you're dealing with awful, compacted clay soil, if your yard is constantly littered with fallen branches, or if you live somewhere that's really prone to drought. But you might want to reconsider if you're just working with standard, shallow raised beds, if you can't handle the serious physical labor of moving heavy logs, or if your garden is right up against your house's foundation. It's an amazing tool for sure, but only for the right job.
And that's really the question we're left with, isn't it? Hugelkultur paints this incredible picture of a super productive, low-effort garden. But to get to that paradise, you have to put in a massive amount of work up front. So is it a revolutionary garden solution? Or are you just trading one kind of yearly work for one giant mountain of work at the beginning? The answer, it seems, is buried somewhere in your own backyard.